Stem cells. Why are we even concerned about stem cells? And do we want them? What role do they play? And how does magnesium make a difference in the quality and the quantity of your stem cells and your healing? Now, remember, here's my disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, not playing one. I'm not telling you what to do. You and I are just talking. I wish we were having lunch together, but we're just talking all things healthy so that we can feel good, so we can do those things that we need to do to make a softer landing for other people and for ourselves. So, stem cells are this really interesting to me, I think, cell that when we're doing the 30-day challenge, we're actually boosting. And here's what the studies show. So a stem cell, in a really oversimplified way, it's almost like it hasn't decided yet what kind of cell to be. And so it can do anything that needs to be done. Think of like this really multifaceted person that can do just anything. You know, we all know those people, like they're just good at whatever they do. It's kind of like a stem cell. Now, when stem cells, when the quality and the quantity is increased in our gut, that's where it's not magic, it's science, but oh my gosh, the benefits are enormous. So, what dictates and determines the quality of stem cells in our gut? And how is this 30-day challenge that we're soaking in magnesium to get our red blood cell numbers up? How does that even play a role? And the answer is simple. The quality, the ratio of your vitamin D status is what makes a difference in the quality and the quantity of stem cells in your gut. And so we want optimal vitamin D levels because those stem cells are incredibly versatile and incredibly healing in connecting us back to original potential. Think of like your original printing of DNA, what you're supposed to be before toxins and environmental molds and stress and all that kind of stuff hits. Those stem cells are hardwired for that. And so I want more in my gut because we know that gut health affects depression, anxiety, hormones, digestion. It's like a brain is going on down there that's dictating so many things when it comes to being healthy. Okay, Kristen, how in the world did you soak while you were lying in bed? You've got to give me more details on that, friend. I love it. That's the first time I've ever heard of anyone doing that. I have a little girl that soaks in her rain boots. So she soaks while she plays with her friends, 1 foot in each rain boot, and has her parents fill it with magnesium, which I think is about the cutest thing ever. So that stem cell, let's go back to stem cells. That stem cell is the most healing cell that you've got in your body. We want more of those. I want more of those. Do you want more of those? I do. And so magnesium is increasing the quality of your vitamin D. And one thing that it does is because it's decreasing inflammation. And I'll put my little disclaimer. Studies have shown that magnesium decreases inflammation and it increases the quality of your calcidiol and calcitriol vitamin D levels. And so when we have the proper ratios, now, yesterday I talked about ratios, but I've been talking on so many social media sites. It might have been my Instagram stories. So check those out. And it might have been Facebook. And whatever is on Facebook is on YouTube because I stream those at the same time. So yesterday, we talked about the ratios between vitamin D, calcidiol, and calcitriol. Magnesium helps you to balance out those ratios. But, and here's the big but, that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 2 weeks. It doesn't happen with one jug of magnesium. That's with consistent soaking and keeping your levels above 6.3 so you're at cell saturation. And some people, their inflammation is so high, they need more than magnesium to bring that inflammation down. And so, for example, when people say, oh, I didn't feel anything, that's an indicator, we've got some high inflammation going on in that body. It's another reason why we walk in the early morning to get the rays of sun that in the morning to bring down our inflammation. That red light in the sunrise and the next couple hours is the most powerful light to bring down inflammation. And we're taking it in through our eyes. And so as we soak in magnesium and we bring better balance, we reduce our inflammation in our body, we bring better balance to our calcidiol and calcitriol, that's when we start making a difference with stem cells. And they are the most intelligent cell, and we want more quality and we want more quantity. Now, there's some proven ways that you can increase the quality of your stem cells. Eating and chewing your vegetables well. Not eating until you're stuffed. Have you ever oh, I'm so full? At that point, overeating. We want you to be satisfied but not stuffed. So that makes a huge difference. Now, I'm not saying restrict your food. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying be in tune with your body, eat slower, be more intentional, chew it better, and be aware of when you're reaching that satisfied point in your stomach. And a lot of people, leptin determines this, leptin and ghrelin. And a lot of people, because of the insulin resistance, that's off. And so that's another reason that we need to bring the magnesium and the morning walk together. So that's why August is so powerful. And those things that we're doing to get ready for winter are actually increasing the quality and the quantity. Now, the other thing you have to look at is you've got to look at your carb intake. And no one can tell, I don't know where you're at, what you're doing, because I know the questions will be, how many carbs? It depends on where you're at. Because one thing that we could all benefit from is cutting out processed carbs. So everybody benefits from that. And that's one of those common sense, grandma wisdom kind of things. When you have a high carb overload and you take in and it converts it to glucose and that spikes the insulin, that reduces the quality and quantity of stem cells. Now, another thing, I find this one really interesting. Another thing that is been shown in studies to improve the quality and quantity of stem cells is traveling from one altitude to another altitude. It was a really interesting study, and I'm traveling to Utah soon. I'm at, sea level. You can see that beautiful ocean in the back or on the side of me. And so I didn't realize that every time I do that, I do it quite often. Those grandbabies pull me back in. That I'm that's really good. So changing altitudes is really good for stem cells. But let's go back to the number one thing for stem cells, and that is the quality of your vitamin D. I think, and I would recommend that in August, by the end of August, you know where your vitamin D levels are, calcidiol and calcitriol, because that's going to help you determine what decisions you need to make moving forward for the next 3 months when it comes to vitamin D. And some people might need a vitamin D supplement if their stored is really, really low. That would be an appropriate time to add that vitamin D supplement. But if your stored is higher than your active, then adding a vitamin D supplement is going to blow out that ratio even more. And we know that we want the stored and the active having a 1.5, no more than 2 times greater. And so getting your vitamin D levels checked. I used to do it through my insurance, and my insurance has pulled back on how much they'll pay. So I just buy it at walk-in labs. And I'll ask Shelly to post a link to the actual test because it's a little confusing. They'll say 125OH and they have parentheses and they have different types. So I'll link to those 2 tests when I get back to the office. I'll have Shelly help me link to those 2 tests because healing the gut is where it's at. And we've kind of been sold this lie of all these gut healing protocols, when in actuality, if you have a strong foundation in place, you're at cell saturation, you're getting sunshine, your vitamin D levels are strong, that's the most powerful thing that you can do for stem cells. And now there are other layers. We talked about the carbs, we talked about little things. Vegetables increase stem cells. But the main core one is that strong vitamin D. So now when you look at that vitamin D test, you're not just looking at a vitamin D test. You're looking at the potential your gut, your cells have to heal your body. And to me, that test takes on completely different significance. It's not just vitamin D. That's the potential of my stem cells in my gut. So my goal, I do have an agenda. I'll tell you when I have an agenda. I have an agenda. I really want you to get your vitamin D levels checked at the end of August, because that way you can make decisions for you, personalized to your body. Nobody can tell you that but your body. Like I can't say, oh, do this, because I don't know what your vitamin D levels came back at. And so getting that test done, knowing your magnesium levels and your vitamin D levels, so 3 tests, active vitamin D, stored vitamin D, and magnesium, knowing where those are at helps you make decisions moving forward. So here's a decision that I would make if my stored was very low and my active was above it, but still really low. I would add a vitamin D supplementation with vitamin K. I would add mushrooms. I would add cod liver oil. I would do everything I could to bring that stored up while maintaining my magnesium levels, because the magnesium levels convert the D from stored to active. So if your magnesium levels aren't up, I wouldn't take oral vitamin D, even if it was low, because you need that magnesium to convert it. And you're causing problems if you're just adding this D and your body can't convert it. And then you need to take cholesterol into play, because when we take synthetic vitamin D, it changes the cholesterol pathway. And cholesterol is what gets turned into vitamin D. And so that needs to be taken into account also. So I find stem cells fascinating, especially the role in healing and sealing the gut. And once you have those basic things in place, how many things your body does on its own. It doesn't need this intensive gut healing protocol with all these supplements. It doesn't need it, because if you have your magnesium and your D strong and in place, your body knows what to do. But if we don't, then we start having issues. So here at Living the Good Life Naturally, we're all about building a strong foundation. You build it strong. You don't chase symptoms. You don't start out your health journey, well, I don't think you should, by saying, oh, I'm going to do this gut protocol. Really? Do you have your Mag and D in place to support that? Because that's the ultimate healer. There is no supplement, none, that can do what a stem cell does. None. They're the most powerful healers. And because they haven't determined yet what they need to be doing, they can go anywhere and do anything to heal in the body. I find that fascinating. Oh, Leanne, you're so welcome. I wondered, yesterday I did a cold plunge on my Insta stories, and it was so interesting. Basically, the majority of reactions were, I would never do that. And there were a couple people that said, oh my goodness, I'm willing to try this. And so I wasn't sure how stem cell would land today, Leanne. So thank you for sharing with me that you find it fascinating too. So our goal in August is utilizing the seasons, getting sunshine. Now, you can tell we have well, maybe you can't, but right there, we have a heavy marine layer today. And I am still getting benefits from the sun, even though there's a heavy marine layer. And even if you don't have perfect sunshine, you're getting benefits also from the sun. That's the beautiful thing, that light penetrates the clouds and we still get benefit from that. And as we walk in the sunshine, it helps our insulin penetrate the cell and become more efficient. And efficiency, when it comes to insulin, is so important, because if you're not on top of that excess insulin traveling around your body and your cells screaming for more insulin because it can't get into the cell, creates inflammation galore. And it's hard to create health. And so if you've ever had the thought, oh my gosh, it's too hard, I can't do this, could be an insulin resistance. Soaking in magnesium, walking, morning sunshine, cutting out your all-day nibbling makes a difference. Doesn't change in a week. It will take longer for some, depending. You can be doing it for maybe 4 or 5 months and not see a difference in your morning blood sugar numbers. And it can be frustrating, and I get that. But you have to remember your brain has to recognize the new patterns that you're putting into place. It has to see them. And the better your brain is functioning, the more readily it can see that. But if you have lost the ability to burn fat and glucose, then it's going to take your brain longer to see that. And if your liver is not happy and got some stagnation going on, it's going to take longer to see that. So, for example, when somebody first starts into nutritional ketosis and their numbers go through the roof, that's issues with that liver. And so we know it's going to take longer for them to get there. So you have to have a realistic time frame. And sometimes we think, man, we've been doing this for 2 weeks, or I've been doing this for 3 months. But have you been doing it consistently in a way that you're supporting your foundation, not chasing symptoms, and not reading about it, but actually knowing your numbers, knowing what you need to do for your body? Okay, so Leanne walked the hills at sunrise this morning, did trauma bounce, sitting in the sauna now, in the magnesium and cold shower. Oh, that is a beautiful stacking of functions. I absolutely love that. I'm doing one more cold plunge today. And because it's warmer, for those of you doing cold plunges, I just want to add this on. Because it's warmer for us right now, my hose had been laying out in the sun, and so the water melted the ice more. And I forgot to do this because I was focused on figuring out how to film my cold plunge. And so one of the things that I typically do is I freeze big bottles of water and I put them in my outdoor freezer. And then I put that in first and then add my water. So that naturally cools down the water so that when I add my ice, it doesn't all melt really, really quickly because the water is warmer. And that will help you you want those ice chunks floating around you. You don't want it all melted. And yesterday, I didn't do that in doing all the filming and trying to make that work. And my water was not as cold. And so it was not as refreshing, did not reduce my inflammation as much. So I would love to know, what's your takeaway on stem cells? Share with me. Is it something that excites you to understand, my gosh, this is how deep getting sunshine, walking, and soaking, it's like a trifecta. Sunshine, walking, and soaking in magnesium. The benefits go so deep. It's not just a surface level. It goes clear down to our stem cells. So love being with you today. This is the 30-day challenge. You need 2 jugs of magnesium to make it through the 30-day challenge. You're not behind if you haven't started. We have some people starting on the 15th, some people starting toward the end of the month. The goal is to soak in magnesium every day for 30 days. 1/4 cup for adults, 1/8 of a cup for kids. And then after the 30 days, testing your magnesium red blood cell numbers so you know how often you need to soak. Because it seems like there's an extreme on this one. People either soak too much, they haven't tested, and don't realize they're at 6.3, and so they just waste money and time. Or people aren't even close because they've got other issues going on and they're not soaking enough. So by following through and getting that magnesium blood test done, you will have individualized feedback for your body. And I love that. Have a great day.